Hi, I'm Raul Mendoza Jr., Director of Sustainability and Solutions with Texas Energy Aggregation, and this is TEA Talks. Today's guest is communication specialist, facilitator, and author of the Von Lila framework, Rosie von Lila. Rosie is here today to give us a glimpse into that framework. Enjoy.
So I'm going to get into my curious background and the history and where I come from and this framework that I wrote. But before I do that, I would like to get to know you a little bit more. So in that spirit of participation, tell me what brought you here today. You can just shout it out. Curiosity.
Learn how to build our city.
Building your city.
Building an ecosystem.
Building an ecosystem. What else? How about on this side? Quiet over here.
Free snacks and building a better city.
An honest man. Yes. Free snacks and what?
Building a better city.
Building a better city. How about on this side?
Make innovation happen.
Make innovation happen. Okay. Great. Good. I like it. So tell me, what are some of your goals with Waco right now?
For it to be a place where everyone participates and can participate and feels like that they are wanted at the table.
Yeah. Yes. I salute that goal.
Could you repeat that?
She said, make Waco a place where everybody can participate and feels invited to participate and be at the table. Did I get that right? Yeah. Good. Okay, so my background, I live in New York, I live in Manhattan, and I grew up in a small town. And this is my first time to Waco. I pulled into the city yesterday, and I thought, wow, this feels like the place where I grew up. I grew up in Northern California. My hometown is Arcata. There's population 8,000 people when I was growing up. And the next closest city was 30,000 people, which was Eureka, California. It's an industry town focused on the logging industry, and there's a huge environmental movement that has surrounded that. So I grew up in a place where there were these two different communities that had different wants. And I observed how these ecosystems engaged. That gave me a love of understanding how to make these things work together. And I went to business school and I studied management. And I then moved to San Francisco when I was about 18. And I soon after started going to an event called Burning Man, which I'll get more into. But it's taken me on this journey where I have learned and understood how communities are built, how they engage, how to facilitate communication between them, and how to inspire participation in the world. So I have two visions for the world that I would like to see achieved in my lifetime and in our lifetime. The first one is I would like to see our planet stewarded for future generations. I'd like to see our natural resources managed in such a way that we leave the planet cleaner and better than it is now for our children and our grandchildren. My second vision for the world is I'd like to see a world where all humans have their basic needs met, where everybody has access to healthcare and education, and they have the opportunity to be the very best that they can be. So that's what I'm out to do, and that's where all of my work stems from. So the first part of my work that I'm going to talk about is this framework. This is a screenshot from my website. I wrote this framework when I said, I had some really interesting experiences about 4 years ago, and I said, what do I really want to use my life for? And that was when I discovered these two visions. And so I said, okay, the world is going to be stewarded, and this better world is going to be created by three things. It's going to happen through participation of the people, it's going to happen through governance and policy, and it's going to happen through business. So I decided to tackle participation of the people first. So I wrote this framework, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today. And really, what I'm up to is here, reinventing the American dream and inviting all people to participate in it. Now, what's the American dream? What would you say it is? Participation. Come on. What was it? Be successful. What was it?
A double wide on 10 acres.
He wants a double wide on 10 acres. Would you like that with a white picket fence? Yes.
Kids can have a better life than you do.
Ah, that's great. What is successful? What's your definition of success? Oh.
Live life that I am comfortable with without worry.
Yeah. Being able to live a life where it's just comfortable without worry. What else? How about from the back? What's the American dream?
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Pursuit of happiness? Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? So I like to think of the American dream as the freedom to create what you want, the freedom to build what you want. And do you agree that every person in the world should have that opportunity? Yes? Great. So that's where today's work comes from. That's the heart of it. So I'd like to talk about Burning Man and what it is. Who here has heard of Burning Man? Yes, who's never heard of it? You can raise your hands, totally fine. Okay, so for the people who have heard of it, what do you know about it?
It's marvelous.
Yeah, right on. Yes, it is.
Collaboration of community and artists and thrill seekers and it's an array.
Yes, it is all of those things. So it's a cooperation of community and artists and thrill seekers. What else? Who else has heard anything about it?
Very edgy.
Edgy, yes. Has anybody been to Burning Man? Yeah, all right. So I found out about Burning Man in 1999, and my first year was in 2000. This is going to be my 17th year attending. And when I heard about it, I just heard, oh, it's amazing. It's this free place. You have to come experience it. And when I went there, what I discovered was just absolute freedom. It's this magical place where people come from all over the world to experience building things together, creating things together, to experience an opportunity to actually be themselves and express who they want to be. And most of us spend most of our life adhering to somebody else's expectations of what we should be. And so Burning Man is very much about art and creativity and self-expression. And what it's become in the world, this is the Saturday night at the event. In the middle, that little green stick figure, that's the man. And surrounding it is 70,000 people who are there to celebrate together. And it's very much about this artistic experience. So my background, I am steeped in participatory culture. And what Burning Man has given me is a willingness to take risks and tremendous creative freedom, tremendous opportunity to dream big, which is how I got to this place of saying, what do I really want to do with my life? This was me a couple years ago doing the Burning Man thing. Most people wear costumes because it's very fun. You get to explore a different side of yourself. And in 2012, somebody said to me, I'd been going to Burning Man for 12 years, and somebody said, I think you should work for Burning Man. And I was like, I'd never thought about that. It never occurred to me. And I said, I love that idea, because I was hooked. Many people say that Burning Man is a cult. If it is a cult, it is a self-service cult where you wash your own brain. So being the dreamer that I am, I said I want to work for Burning Man, and I made it happen within 8 months. I spent 3 years up until last year working on behalf of the organization, out publicly representing it, talking about the culture, talking about the history, talking about the movement that it is. Through my framework that I wrote, I've gone to some very interesting places. So the framework came out of this understanding of how do we inspire people to get involved. And much to my delighted surprise, some very interesting groups and organizations have taken an interest in this. So I was invited to the United Nations to sit in on the hearing. It's a stakeholders hearing for the Sustainable Development Goals. Is everybody familiar with the SDGs? Yes, raise your hand if you are. Yes, not everybody is. So the United Nations, back in, for the year 2000, they passed the Millennial Development Goals, which was a set of, I think, 9 goals for the entire world, and they set metrics that they wanted to hit, and the entire world did a pretty good job of hitting these goals. So for 2015, they set new development goals. There are 17 of them with like 100 different metrics that they want to hit, and it ranges from making sure that it basically supports those 2 visions that I was talking about stewarding our planet and creating a world where everybody has their basic needs met, access to healthcare and access to education. So I got invited to the United Nations to sit in on that. I've also been invited to the Pentagon to present. I've gone to the Pentagon twice to talk about this framework, and I was invited to speak at the National Defense University. Now, why is the military taking an interest in this? Well, they want to bridge the civilian and military divide. And they want to understand, this particular group was studying humanitarian aid and disaster relief. And they wanted to know how to better engage communities. Now, the military already knows quite a bit, like they're on a very sophisticated organization. But they wanted to know things like, how do we connect into existing network nodes that are already in the community? So the framework itself, I developed it to shift people from what I call being passive consumers of life. And what that means is people who are saying, well, I don't like how this is. Somebody should fix it. And I say, it's got to be you who fixes it. It's got to be us who fixes it. Because the government can't do it on its own. The government is run by people like us, and so we all have to help. The other thing that it does is it awakens people to being creators of solutions. So remember my origin. I come from Burning Man, where anything is possible. It's this crucible of human potential where we can make and do anything. And I've seen it happen. So that's what this is about. And the other thing is it builds the human network. Now, why is our network important? The framework is important because at this time in our life, our issues are so large, our challenges are so big, we're facing major problems that anybody who can help must help. And the network portion of it is important because the way that we get our business done, our projects done, the way that we run our organizations is through the relationships that we have. So the framework breaks down into 3 categories of information. It's attitude, access, and agency. And all of this is listed on my website at vonlila.com. And if you happen to be on Twitter, you can connect to me there. I'm at Rosie von Lila. So let's talk about attitude. So attitude has 2 elements. The first element is curiosity. So what is curiosity? What's curiosity? Tell me.
Asking questions.
Yes! Have you been studying my website? So it's asking questions. First place that we ask questions is questions of self. So what do I want? What do I want in my life? What does success look like to me? What do I want for my family? What do I want for my community? And what do I want for my world? The more that you have your basic needs met, the more you are able to scale up and start asking, what do I really want to address? The second part of attitude is inclusion. So how do we include people? Inform. Okay. Another way, so that's putting information out to them. Another way to include people is to ask them questions so that you take information in. So questions of others. So questions like, what are the issues that are happening in your community right now? What solutions do you see? What do you think is needed to get there? How can you help? What help do you need? How can we help? The second part of the framework is access. So the first portion is access to space. And when we say space, we're talking about physical space. So physical space is important because it, much like this room here, allows for social collisions. So has anyone met anyone new here today? Yes? Okay. Does anybody want to meet anybody new? Yes? Okay, great. You can connect with each other. Now, who's run into somebody that they know? Everybody? Yes? Good. And when you get to bump into each other like that, you get to catch up, hear what's going on, you get to stay abreast of what's happening in another person's world. And that's important. Relationship building is important. Why? What did I say earlier? It's how we get things done. Okay? Next part of access is information, tools, and training. So today is an incredible time to be alive. Never have we been so connected. Never have we had so many tools available at our fingertips to create anything that we want. Is that right? Yes. So we need to be sure that everybody has access to the internet, that everybody through that portal has access to training and has access to skills and education. And I'm going to talk at the end today about a couple different resources that you can find online that particularly speak to that, having access to education. So the last part of the framework is about agency. So agency is about empowerment. The first part of that is inviting. How do you invite somebody? Will you invite me over for dinner, please, right now? Yes, but would you do it right now?
We're having that. Come by.
I would love to. Thank you. Would you invite me to have one of your grapes?
I would love for you to eat one of these grapes if you like.
What was that? Would you like one? I would love one. Thank you. Okay, now what did she just say? She said, would you like to? Okay, so that's how we invite people. Now in the beginning of this, I said, will you play with me? That was an invitation, yes? Yes. Great, so the way that we invite people is, would you like to? Would you like to get involved?
Would you like to sign this petition?
Yes, would you sign this? Will you support this? Will you help us do this? This is something that's very important to me. This is important to our community. Will you help us? Who here asks for things like that already? Who here would like to ask for things like that? Yeah, to get more engaged in that way. So it comes down to you have to be willing to risk rejection and ask over and over again. I came into this room today willing to ask as many times as was necessary, will you play with me today? I was going to say it 20 times if needed until all of you were like, yes, we'll do it, okay? So the next part of agency is connecting. Who here is really good at networking? Who here is really good at connecting? What's the difference? What's
Getting to ask yourself.
What was that?
I think getting to ask.
Getting the ask?
Networking is making the ask. Connecting is getting the ask.
Ah, okay, interesting. So networking is an outward flow and connecting is an inward flow, okay?
I think of connecting also as helping two other people connect who you
Yep.
know could
Yep.
benefit.
Yep. What else?
Networking is for yourself, connecting is for a wider group.
Yes, yes. Okay, so the traditional definition of networking is leveraging your personal relationships and your business relationships to develop a business pipeline for yourself and for your business. Connecting, on the other hand, I look at that as aiming to connect people, much like what you were just saying. So what we do in connecting is we keep our eyes open on what's happening out in our network. Who needs what? And then you connect people based on, like, I saw John has this job opening, and he's looking for an accountant. Mary is a certified public accountant. She's looking for new work. So I'll just introduce them. And I don't expect anything from that. But here's the cool thing, is that when we start to build our ecosystem in that way, by you choosing to add value first, to put value out first rather than saying what's in it for me first, I'm only going to do it if there's something in it for me, put value out first and that will circulate back around to you. Because as you build these relationships with John and Mary and everybody else, they will start to respect you as a person who cares about them and who adds value to their work. And that has value in the system, right? So then when you need something, you have a whole team of people that you can go and talk to and say, hey, I'm looking for this, or I have this job position open, or I'm raising money for this, or I need advice on this, can you help me? They'll be more willing to help. Who already does that? Does it work? Yes? Okay, last part of agency is translating. So when we are looking to create solutions for communities or unify communities, we need to have a person or an entity that can help facilitate communication across differences. So these can be age differences, it can be cultural differences, language differences, gender, race differences, every kind of difference that you can think of. When we have two different groups with two different worldviews coming together and we want them to communicate, there needs to be somebody there who can help facilitate the communication. I was in Israel a few years ago and doing research for this framework, and I was introduced to a man who worked in the mayor's office, and he told me that he had brought together a meeting with a very senior person from the mayor's office who was very conservative. He was in his 60s, he shows up in his suit, and he's all clean and pressed and together, and he brought in a woman who was 23 who was running an incubator center, a co-working space for students to come and co-work. And he brought these two people together, and she shows up and she's dressed kind of hip. Like, she's got this scarf on that's got fringe on it. And the guy, my friend, Mikhail, he knew that he could see that the older gentleman, who was very well put together, was already judging this young woman before she even opened up her mouth. He was judging her for like not being enough, being different. And what Michael was able to do is facilitate communication to help them find common ground. So translating is helping two parties find shared interest. When we talk about what we agree upon more than what we disagree upon, we're able to move forward more easily. So that's a little tip if you're ever trying to resolve a conflict with somebody interpersonally. Look for the things that you have in common interest first before talking about the things that you have that are different. And that's good for in-laws too, and bringing family members together who might fight. So this is a translator. This is a man, I have the hardest time saying his name, it's Shitekat Martinez. Did I say that right? Can you say that? Yeah. So he is an environmental activist. I think he's about 17 now. Here he is speaking at the United Nations, and here he is performing his hip hop. Do you think that this young man is able to speak to the youth? Do you think that this young man is able to speak to leadership? Yes. So this is a perfect example of a translator. Oh, Raul, when you and I were talking, you thought of yourself as a translator too, right? What are one of the opportunities where you see a need for translation here in Waco?
Seeing the opportunities for the younger generation and the older generation to communicate well together, to find a common ground on how to build a city where everyone wants to be grown to. I think that's where I see it.
So through my research, I heard again and again that it would be great if there were some links between the more experienced people in the community here, aka the older generation, and connecting with the younger people. And one of the things that I want to do here is give permission to the younger people to pursue your ideas, the ideas that you have for improving your community. Have the thought that it could actually work. Think of the reasons of why you should do it rather than the reasons of why you shouldn't. And I want to invite the more experienced community members here, the people who have more power, the people who have more experience, the people who have been in business longer, to connect with the younger people and listen to them. And the same goes for the younger people. Connect with the older people and listen to them. There can be a lot of really great ideas that come from that. So this framework, it's about empowerment, it's about making things happen, it's about taking a stand for what you believe in your community and actually working to make it happen and being relentlessly resourceful in making it happen. Who here has failed to do something in their life because of a lack of money? Come on, raise your hand. It's like everybody. Okay, I do too. How about lack of time? Yeah, okay. So I have one of my role models is Tony Robbins. Do I have any Tony Robbins fans here? Yes. So he just did a program in Dallas that I was at. You may have read about it in the news. Yeah, I walked over those hot coals. One of the things that he says is that our inability to take action or our choice to not take action is not about lacking resources. It's about lacking resourcefulness. And where does resourcefulness come from? It comes from inside. Inside. So each of us, every single person in this room has what we need inside of us to drive really hard, meet all the people that we need, and collect the resources that we need to actually make it happen. What you have to do is work on yourself, develop yourself, have that fortitude. Okay, here are a few things for developing yourself. Who here has listened to TED Talks before? Great, the majority of the room. So if you haven't heard about TED, it's a big conference that started a few decades ago. It now happens in Vancouver. It's a big deal, but what's even cooler is that there are satellite events which are called TEDx events. And TEDx events are independent from the mother organization. They're independently produced, and they're produced by the community for the community. Has there been a TEDx here in Waco? Oh, that's an opportunity for you. Today. So if somebody were intrepid here and said, hey, we should create an opportunity for people in the community to tell their stories. Like, you could get Jimmy to tell a story. You could get Stevie to tell a story. And you could do it at their theater. hey, that would be cool. And have people get up on stage and tell stories. The talks are usually 12 minutes or 18 minutes long, and you talk about an inspiring idea. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. But it's really about ideas that crack open people's minds. So that's at TED.org. There's thousands of talks that you can watch. My very favorite, I'll tell you my favorites. You want to know my favorites? Yeah. I'm going to share them with you anyway. So the most watched TED Talk is by Sir Ken Robinson. He has, I think, like 4 talks. He is amazing. He is so funny. I wish I had a dry sense of humor like he does. His timing is just incredible. He talks about how schools educate the creativity out of our children. That's a really good one to watch. Then there is Elizabeth Gilbert. People know her? What did she write? Yes, she's written many books, the most famous of which was Eat, Pray, Love. I love her storytelling. She talks about, her talk is called Your Elusive Creative Genius. And she talks about how in order to separate herself, she's a writer, and so she said most writers have a reputation of being manic depressive alcoholics who eventually kill themselves. So she said in order to not go down that path, she had to find a way to disassociate herself from her work. Because as an artist, and we can all be artists in our work, but as an artist, if we merge our identity with our work and the critics think our work sucks, then that means we suck. And so she went on this really cool journey to find a way to disassociate that. So her talk, Your Elusive Creative Genius, I recommend that one. And then next, we have Khan Academy. Has anybody heard of Khan Academy? Yes? This is an incredible resource. You can learn pretty much anything. They have all of these videos on there. It was started by a man named Sam Khan. And this is an award-winning website, and it's free. So anybody who has access to a computer can go on there and learn science, they can learn math, they can learn how to code, you can learn design skills, just everything you want to learn is on there. So this is why it's so important that we give people access to computers and the internet. It would be really great if there were a social hub here, a community hub, where young people who don't have computers could come in and actually use them. Does that exist? Do you guys have that? Great, good. Instructables, does anybody know about Instructables? So this is for makers. We all can be makers, make things with your hands. You can go on there and learn to make all kinds of really cool things, ranging from this first page was about making a wind turbine for your backyard. They have things like how to make lampshades, how to crochet, how to make robots. Like it's got a broad spectrum of things on there. Okay, so what am I up to now in the world? I want to share with you how I'm living the framework. So I have made a quantum leap from Burning Man. Remember my 2 visions for the world: create a world where everybody has their basic needs met and steward the world for future generations. So I call myself a mega manifester, because through the power of intention and sheer will and willing to work on my stuff daily, I make crazy things happen. So I said a few years ago, all right, I want to work on climate change and I want to work on protecting our planet and like cleaning it up so it's nice. So through that, I ended up in conversation with a member of the Rockefeller family who said, you know, my family just announced that we're divesting from fossil fuels, which is yay, that's cool. Or maybe not in Texas. No. And he was lamenting the fact that they didn't know where to reinvest. And I said, you know, seeing an opportunity to help further this dream that I have, I said, let's figure it out together. So we hosted a couple research roundtables at the Rockefeller Brothers Fund in New York. And through that, I invited the smartest person that I know in finance. And he came up with a strategy for a company. And we've launched a company. We started it 6 months ago. It's called Lumera. And what we are out to do is improve people's lives and the planet through infrastructure, through physical infrastructure. And so I find myself having gone from the world of Burning Man, of pure creativity, pure potential, and now I'm working in really serious business, particularly in the energy sector. That was how I met TJ and Leanne, was at an energy conference that I got invited to. And every single day that I get to work on this stuff, I'm like, this is so crazy. But the reason that I'm working in it is because I'm passionate, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm really good at communications and storytelling. And so I'm bringing a fresh perspective in how to raise a national conversation on infrastructure and infrastructure investment and why that's important. So that's what I'm up to. This is the cover for the series that we'll have coming out in the next few months. I've been interviewing high-profile leaders across business and governance, everybody ranging from Grover Norquist to Dennis Kucinich. Like, I'm getting like the broad spectrum. And it's really cool to hear what these luminaries have to say. So infrastructure touches every single part of our lives, every single second of our days, from the moment that we're born to the moment that we die. And I find myself working in energy because that is like the foundation of our civilization. And if we're going to address our problems, that's where I see the biggest lever to pull. So where did all of this come from? It all came from, what do I want? What can I give? Well, I want those two visions. What can I give? I'm good at storytelling. I'm good at connecting people. So that's what we're here. Now, I want to tell you about a book. Is anybody here interested in improving Waco or changing the world for the better? Yes, raise your hand high. Raise your hand high. Okay, if you're not raising your hand, what are you doing? All right. Now, if you're really serious about it, there's this book. It's right here. It's called Abundance by Peter Diamandis. I invite you and I challenge you to read this book if you're really serious about changing the world. Why? Half of this book is stories. The other half of it, literally, the other half of it, all of this, is data. And what he shows you through data and through these stories is that the world is actually in a much better state than it's ever been. We're actually improving dramatically. Our brain, however, is wired to look for danger. Our reptile brain, the amygdala, is responsible for 4 things: fighting, fleeing, feeding, and reproducing. So, he says in his book, human beings are designed to be local optimists and global pessimists, meaning we're optimistic on the inside. We often think more of ourselves, that we can do more than we actually can. Has anybody ever gone on an online date or made your online dating profile or met somebody from an online date who didn't look like their pictures? Who was actually 2 inches shorter than they said they were? Yeah, that happened to me. So the point of this is that this is an invitation to start looking at the world as we can actually create this future. We can actually do it in our lifetimes. I used to say, I don't know if this vision is possible, the vision for those 2 visions. I don't know if it's possible in my lifetime, but it's what I'm devoting my life to. And then one day I said, I don't want to hold that belief anymore. This is possible in our lifetimes. Never have we been so connected. Never have we had as many resources available to us as we do. Never has information been able to exchange so quickly. We are on such a rapid path of human development that it's a very exciting time to be alive. So whatever it is that you want to achieve here in Waco, whatever ideas you have to connect with older people, with younger people, to improve the city streets, to improve community centers, to build a business, all of that is available to you. So this is what we're talking about. We can do this in Waco, we can do it on a national scale, we can do this globally. We are talking about a revolution, and I'm not talking about a revolution that's violent, I'm talking about a revolution in the way that we think about things. It's a revolution of consciousness, it's a revolution of choice, it's a revolution of awareness. And when we say choice, it's the choice of what you're choosing to believe, what is possible here in Waco. I call it the revolution for evolution. So it's a revolution for continuing to build, to grow. We're going to wrap up the forum here, and I'd like to give you guys some time to connect and talk further. What I would suggest is identify who it is that you need to connect with, and you have a wealth of connections here in this room that I'm sure you're 1 degree of separation from the people that you need to connect with. And then do what you always do to build relationships. Invite them out for coffee and talk about improving Waco. So thank you very much for your kind attention today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.